New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney is doing her part to help get abandoned Americans. We're going past stranded out of Afghanistan. She's drafting a bill to prohibit the U.S. government from charging, because get this, it's law, like $2,000 for a flight, charging American citizens for evacuation flights after she learned that they may actually be charging people to get out of a situation that the Biden administration created. Tenney is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and she's called on Biden to resign for his mishandling of this crisis. And the Congresswoman joins me now. So good to see you. And I really want to talk about the Flights for Freedom, because this is insane to me. And I understand that somehow this is like some obscure part of the law where it's like $2,000 if an American is in a really rough, part of the world, an emergency happens, something breaks out, unrest. They actually have to reimburse the U.S. government up to a certain amount to even to evacuate. But with this, what we were hearing was that Americans were being charged $2,000 per flight, even more for Afghan assets. What can you tell us about this and how the Biden administration says it was changed, but apparently it's still up and they're still using it?
Well, unfortunately, they're not doing a whole lot to help us evacuate American citizens or Afghans or our allies out of Afghanistan right now, all those people that are stranded there. But what this bill will do is give the Secretary of State the power to waive that fee for people who are trying to be evacuated from this emergency situation in Afghanistan. And so I've got my colleague Brian Mast from Florida, the representative who served in Afghanistan, and Tom Tiffany and others are joining us to make sure that we aren't penalizing these people even more who are in this terrifying and perilous situation in Afghanistan right now.
I would imagine that your office, that you're hearing a lot from, whether it is, veterans who are saying these are people who helped us when I served over there. I know that this seems to be, it's common, and it's scary to me that it's common, because it just shows how decentralized and haphazard the planning for evacuation was, if it existed at all. I know your office is involved in these efforts. What can you tell us about those?
This is a colossal disaster. We are working with private entities. We're working with people with philanthropic interests who are mostly former military members, believe it or not, who want to continue to provide us aid. And we're using private contractors, former military people with the ability to be on the ground to help people get from their homes or safe houses to the airport, and from that point onto a private plane and out of the country. We're very cognizant of the concerns about Afghans who have not been vetted and the possibility of errors being made. So we are making sure that these people are evacuated to other countries before they're allowed to get into the United States. We're trying to minimize or eliminate that and make sure they get vetted by the State Department. They're all being vetted before they even get on a plane in Afghanistan, but we're doing we're attempting to do an additional screening before we get them into the United States. But again, we have an open southern border, so I can't imagine that the Chinese and the Russians and everybody else involved in international terror and their
right.
surrogates are out there trying to get people across the border. We are in a more dangerous and perilous situation than we've been in for over 20 years since this all started 20 years ago.
Last quick question for you, Congresswoman. We heard from the State Department, from DOD, from Jen Psaki a little bit ago, not so much from Biden, who he doesn't like to take questions apparently, but what we were hearing is that there's no assurance of, apparently we're going to have a military drawdown that's going to be completely drawdown before August 31st, and there's no assurances or no answers to the questions as to whether or not all of the Americans are going to be evacuated by then. I know that they said that they had a contingency plan for after the 31st, but if there's no military presence there, how in the world are those people going to be extricated? They can't even get to the airport right now.
Exactly. We're at the mercy of the Taliban, a terrorist organization that is out there killing people as we speak right now. Or even surrogates of the Taliban. This is a dangerous situation. That's why we're continuing to work with as many private assets as we can. We're coming up with plans and solutions to get American citizens out of Afghanistan. It is completely reprehensible and unacceptable that we, as individual members of Congress, and there are many of us working on this, and private citizens are cleaning up the mess left by Joe Biden, which is why I have called repeatedly for his resignation. And it can't come soon enough, because we need to cut our losses now and find a way to solve this issue. And he's not part of the solution.